Okay, going live again. I'm going to do the math part first, and then I will do like the live part where I talk to you. I'm a little worried because I have a lot of homework to do, but I will hang out with you guys for a bit. A lot of homework, and I have to plan again for the kiddos tomorrow, so gotta be up for a while. But I am going to do trigonometry functions first. It should not take me very long. Should be like 10 minutes or so to go over this. And then I will stop the live and then talk to you guys. Okay? Hello to everybody. But I am going to take you around so I can do the math lesson so I can put it up. Oh gosh. Okay. This is the math lesson. Okay, I am going to do a math lesson on trigonometry functions. And that is sine, cosine, and tangent. So the first thing I'm going to teach you is Sohcahtoa. If you haven't learned about Sohcahtoa, you probably haven't done sine, cosine, or tangent, but there's this word called Sohcahtoa and Sohcahtoa, and people have just memorized it. It's pretty easy to memorize. I've memorized it, Sohcahtoa. But what it stands for is this is sine, and it stands for opposite. Oh, my pen is running out. I don't think I even have another one. Let's see. Oh, I do. Never mind. Yeah, that one will work. Okay, so the S stands for sine, and the two letters following it stand for opposite over hypotenuse. Okay, and then the C stands for cosine. So like these stand for one of the trig functions. These stand for one of the trig functions. This stands for adjacent over hypotenuse. And then this stands for tangent. And this stands for opposite over adjacent. And I'll tell you what all of those mean here in just a second. So I'm going to leave that there. And trig functions deal with right triangles. Okay, so deal with right triangles. So if I say this x here is just going to identify the side I'm looking at. So the opposite, not the x, sorry. I'm going to do the angle. So this angle identifies the x. So what I'm trying to do is I'm going to say the opposite side is the opposite of that angle. The hypotenuse is always across from the right angle. So the hypotenuse never changes. The hypotenuse is always across from the right angle. Opposite and adjacent will change depending on what angle you're looking at. So if I'm looking at this angle where the x is, then the opposite side is over here. If I'm, and the adjacent side is right here. Adjacent means right by it, okay? But if I'm looking at from the vantage point of the y, the opposite side is over here, and the adjacent side is here. So it depends on which one you look at, and that's how you're going to solve it. Again, the hypotenuse is always across from the right angle. Okay, so for example, I'm going to leave Sohcahtoa up there. I'll leave that word, Sohcahtoa. So for example, if I have a right triangle and I've been given the sides and I have the angle A, so I'm just going to identify from the vantage point of angle A, I'm going to identify sine, cosine, and tangent. So we're using angle A as the vantage point. That's how we're looking. So for sine, opposite over hypotenuse. So the opposite side of this angle is 21, and then the hypotenuse is 29. So the sine of A, and you can just write it as a fraction, is 21 over 29. So you're looking at the vantage point there. So it's opposite over hypotenuse, because that's what OH stands for. So 21 over 29. Now the cosine of A, cosine is CAH, because cosine, adjacent over hypotenuse. So the cosine of A, adjacent would be 20, and the hypotenuse is 29. So the cosine of A is 20 over 29. And then the tangent of A, because we're still looking at the viewpoint from angle A, tangent stands for opposite over adjacent. That's what the O and the A stand for, opposite over adjacent. So opposite over adjacent, 21 over 20. So that's how you identify sine, cosine, and tangent. I just wanted to know it. There's nothing to solve in this problem. You're just identifying it, okay? So let's start solving problems using trig functions. Let's start with finding a missing side, and then we'll find a missing angle. So a missing side, if I have 17 and x, and then this angle is 59 degrees. So in this case, I have a right angle. I'm given this angle at 59 degrees. I want to solve for this. So from the viewpoint of the angle that's given to me, I have the hypotenuse because it's right across from the angle, right angle. And I also have opposite because it's opposite of that angle, the opposite side. So I have opposite and hypotenuse. So you look at this, opposite and hypotenuse are right here. So that's the sine. So we're using sine to solve this one since we have opposite and hypotenuse. So we say the sine of 59 is equal to opposite over hypotenuse, which is x over 17. And then you just solve this like an equation. We're trying to isolate the variable, so we're going to multiply both sides by 17. And then you take your calculator and you put it, you push sine of 59, find that, and then multiply it by 17. And then you get your answer, and you can round it to like the nearest tens place. So I'm going to round it to x equals 14.6. So you have to know where it is on your calculator. Sine is right here. So you push sine of 59 and plug in 59 and then just multiply it by 17 and you get your answer. Let's do another one. Let's do this one. So with this one, we're looking at the viewpoint from the 27-degree angle. So I know I have my hypotenuse because it's across from the right angle. And I also know I have my adjacent side because it's right by the 27. So adjacent and hypotenuse is cosine. So you say the cosine of 27 is equal to the adjacent side, which was x, over the hypotenuse, which was 20. And again, I solve this just like an equation. I'm going to multiply both sides by 20 to solve for x. So multiply both sides by 20. Those will cancel each other out. Or technically they equal 1. 20 divided by 20 and just leave you 1x. Then you have 20 times the cosine of 27. So I'm going to put in my calculator. So I push cosine. And I push 27. And then I multiply that by 20, and I get 17.8. So x equals 17.8. So that's how long this side is, 17.8. Let's do one more missing side. Okay. So with this one, I have this angle at 40 degrees. So I look at the angle and I notice that I have the adjacent side, the one that's side by side, and the opposite. So I'm going to put that in tangent because tangent's opposite over adjacent. So the tangent of 40 is equal to the opposite, which was 20 over x. Okay, 20 over x. This one's a little bit more difficult to solve because I need to isolate the x, but it's in the denominator. So first of all, I got to get it out of the denominator. So I'm going to actually multiply both sides by x. So then I get x tangent of 40 is equal to 20. Because x times this is just x that. And then these x's, x divided by x is just 1. So you're just left with 20. Now I still need to isolate the x. We're multiplying these. So I'm going to divide both sides by tan of 40. Because I'm trying to isolate the x. So tan of 40 divided by tan of 40 will just give me x. And then this is what I put in my calculator. 20 divided by tan of 40, and we get 23.8. So x equals 23.8. So that is how you find the missing side using trig functions. Now let's try to find the missing angle using trig functions. So we have a triangle here. We're missing that degree. The hypotenuse is 44, and one of the legs is 39. So you have to determine what you have looking at the viewpoint from the angle. So I know I have the hypotenuse because it's across from the right angle, and then the other one is across from the x, so it's on the opposite side. So I have opposite and hypotenuse. So I'm going to be using sine. So you say the sine of x is equal to opposite 39 over the hypotenuse. So when you're solving this for your calculator and you're solving for an angle, you actually put the inverse in on your calculator. So you see this like second button, that's what you're gonna push, and then you'll push the sine button. And so you say second sine, and then you put that in, 39 divided by 44. And it will give you the angle measurement, 62.4. So x equals 62.4. Let's do another one. I love trig functions. They're so fun. Okay. Okay, so we want to find this top angle right here. So first of all, we have to identify what we're given. So we're definitely given the hypotenuse because it's across from the right angle. And then we're given the one right by the angle. So that's the adjacent side. So we have hypotenuse and adjacent. So it's going to be cosine because Sohcahtoa, adjacent and hypotenuse. So we want the cosine of 36 is equal to the adjacent over the hypotenuse. So remember, when we're solving for our angle, we're going to put in second cosine, and then 24 divided by 36, and then we'll enter it. X equals 48.2. 48.2 degrees, and that's how big that angle is. One more, and then we'll do a word problem, and then we'll call it a day for math, and I'll talk to you guys. Okay, so 1316x. So with this one, again, you have to identify what you have. We have the one that's side by side to the x, and we have the one that's across from the angle, so the opposite. So we have adjacent and opposite. So adjacent and opposite is tangent. So we're going to find tangent of x equals opposite, which was 13, over adjacent. Opposite over adjacent, because that's what it is to that angle. We put that into our calculator. Second tan, 13 divided by 16. Push enter, and we get 23.8. X equals 23.8. So that's how you solve equations. Now I'm going to give you a word problem, and we're going to use trig functions to do the word problem. Here's the word problem. It says a 9-meter ladder rests against the side of a wall. The bottom of the ladder is 1.5 meters from the base of the wall. Determine the measure of the angle between the ladder and the ground to the nearest degree. So what you want to do is you want to draw a picture. So it says we have a wall, and we have a ladder resting against it. So this is my ladder. If you want to draw like the actual ladder, you can. So that's my ladder resting against the wall. It says the ladder is 9 meters. And then the bottom of the ladder is 1.5 meters from the base. So that's 1.5. If you notice here, it makes a right triangle. And then it says it wants to know the angle between the ladder and the ground. So here's the ladder and that's the ground. So we're looking there. Okay, so now you have to determine what you have. We have the hypotenuse because it's across from the right angle. And we also have the adjacent side because it's right by the degree that we're trying to find. So that's adjacent and hypotenuse. So if you look, that's cosine. So we're trying to find the cosine of x is equal to adjacent 1.5 over hypotenuse. And then again, when we're trying to find the angle measurement, we put in the inverse. So we say second cosine 1.5 divided by 9. And the angle there to the nearest degree is 80 degrees because it's 80.4. So the nearest degree would be 80 degrees. And that's how you solve a word problem. Awesome. That is your little mini lesson of trig functions. Love it. Okay. Oh, nope, not that yet. Okay, awesome. So so that is the mini lesson on trig functions. So hopefully you understand that. If not, you can watch the video back. I'm going to stop this again, and then I will come back on. Okay? Awesome. Cool.